Hello and welcome to Netflix versus Cinema, the podcast that goes to the cinema every week, watches a couple of things, stays at home, watches a couple of things on the sofa, rates them out of 5, puts them up against each other, and sees where our money was better spent this week. Should we have bothered leaving our houses, or could we just have had better entertainment sitting at home? My name is Tosin, and I am the host. I'm based up in a place in the United Kingdom, in the middle of the country called Bromsgrove near Birmingham. Joining me as always on the Isle of Wight, it's Sharon Bolin.
Hello.
Yay, cool. Sharon, how was that? Was that run up slow enough for you?
It was. I finished chewing.
All right. And joining us also on the Isle of Wight this week is Shaun Harris.
Hello.
Hello. Yes, not joining us today is our resident London correspondent who is taking a bit of a health day, shall we say? It's always good. Look after yourself. Know when it's a bit too much, and then just take a break. Okay, so this week we are going to kick off talking about what it is that we have seen in the cinema. Let us talk about that.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Okay, so Shaun, what are you seeing in the cinema this week?
Okay, in the cinema, so I've had a bit of a sort of catch-up session because I feel I've been a bit lean and I feel I need to get good value.
Come on, Shaun. I mean, the number of beast modes you've done when you've watched everything. You're allowed you're allowed at least a month where you take it easy.
So I saw A Working Man and Death of a Unicorn. With Sharon, I saw that with Sharon, Death of a Unicorn, and then I've watched Novocaine as well. So that's my cinema experience.
All right, cool, good stuff. And Sharon,
At the cinema, I have seen Death of a Unicorn.
Preview screening.
Yes.
All right, cool. So we will definitely do Death of a Unicorn because it's always good when we feel like we've got a scoop and we can tell people about a film before it ends up in cinemas. so that we can tell them whether you should actually go see this on opening night or not. So, all right, cool, good stuff. And I have also seen Novocaine at the cinema, but I did my usual Tuesday double bill. And I saw Novocaine and The Woman in the Yard.
Yeah, I'm interested in that because I mean that's not been we haven't seen hide nor hair of that.
Yeah, well, I heard about that the week before it was released. The first time I saw a trailer for anything was the week before it was released. So The Woman in the Yard. All right, cool. And how about at home on streaming platforms? What have we seen?
Well, I've seen The Last Voyage of the Demeter, which we've spoken about before, I think. And I did think, I mean, when I put that down, I thought I'm pretty sure we probably reviewed that already, but you seem to think not.
Well, then I thought. I know we've spoken about it because there was a big thing about The Last Voyage of the Demeter, which I keep calling the Dementor, but it's not the Dementor, it's Demeter. Yeah, so it's like the thing about that was that it was released in cinemas in the States, didn't do well, and I don't think they released it in cinemas over here. Right. Or if they did, it was very, very limited because the big thing about that was, are we ever going to see this film? It's like, is this film ever going to show up here? And so when you say it, I was like, I'm sure we've mentioned this before. I had this feeling, I thought Shaun might have seen it in the cinema or anything like that. So I actually went back through our records, went to our YouTube channel, looked through all of the reviews, went through I can't find it anywhere. Wow. So I don't think we've spoken about it. If we have, it's done some very Dracula hiding thing, and I can't find it anywhere. So I'd say we go for it. Possibly again, but I don't think we've ever spoken about The Last Voyage of the Demeter. All right, cool. Anything else?
No, that's it really. I've been watching a lot of YouTube stuff, so a lot I could give you documentaries about the Chinese warlords before, the time before and stuff like that. But I mean, I don't know if that will count if people would really be particularly interested in that type of thing.
Okay. Well, speaking about Chinese stuff, we've had some correspondence on our YouTube channel because I reviewed Neja 2 last week, which is a Chinese animation film, and I made one comment which seems to have gotten somebody's hackles in the raise. So, it seems to raise someone's hackles, but so I think I will mention that in a second about China and everything. Actually, I might as well mention it now. I'm doing a run through. It was so I think I made a comment talking about how a big theme of that film is about rebellion. It's about rebellion and about how you can't trust people in authority. And I thought that was a bit of a weird. And Shaun, I mean, you watch a lot more Chinese stuff, and I know you speak with Joe. Joe, who when we were there was time we were doing a podcast with Joe, and Joe would be a resident China expert because he's quite clued up on that. So it's and I said that I was quite surprised because I didn't think this is a massive hit in China. Nature 2 is a massive hit in China, and I was surprised that because I didn't think that those were kind of like rebellion and not trusting what the authorities tell you were topics that the Chinese government would particularly be getting behind.
Yes.
So that was my thing. And somebody got in touch with us on YouTube to essentially tell me off about that. I think it's crazy. Can you imagine that? Somebody getting in touch with you on online to tell you off about something. But let me just see where... Let me see if I can
But I mean, hey, I know they're very, very sensitive, aren't they? YouTube, now you've got to be really, really careful. I think there's a couple of other sort of video streaming platforms now that people have spoken about that are not got quite so much in the way of censorship and stuff.
Yeah, probably, but this wasn't YouTube. It wasn't.
Oh,
YouTube
this wasn't
YouTube.
YouTube. Oh.
It was people who.
Yes,
it was people who had watched the watched the video and
right.
And then had stuff to say about it. So
right, I see.
So it's first of all, well, as we always say here, it's always good when people watch the video. We're always happy when people actually watch the video. So it was let's see, I think I found it. So it was someone called Eleanor Zhang who says movies with rebellion theme are not allowed in China. Ha 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 ha. Funniest joke I've ever heard. Man, you miss a lot.
Oh, wow.
To which I replied, apparently we do. And we love to be educated on all we miss. But she hasn't come back to anything like that. Somebody else, Guester9822 says, I hope you guys eventually watch the first movie as well. Because I was talking about the fact that this is a sequel. And when the first one wasn't released in cinemas over here. And I said, if we could find someone to watch it in the UK, that would be wonderful. And he's asked if it's available on the Vicky Rakuten app or Tubi. Well, have a look and see if it's on Tubi. And... Oh! Sorry. And, in there was another comment I made about how there's apparently different attitudes to what you show in a kid's film in China and I think Japan than there are in in the UK or in America. I was talking about how there was a bit where they essentially show a person's body being cut into pieces in this, which is essentially a kid's film. And this person, who it's called Tsukasa, so TSUKASA 1608, has said, in the 1979 Chinese animated classic, they actually showed a scene where a child killed himself with a sword to his throat. And yes, it's targeting children.
Oh.
So, hey, look, every day is a school day. I am all about learning new things. I'm all about learning new things as we go along. But yeah, I just thought when you mentioned Chinese stuff, I just thought, this would be a good place to talk about the feedback we've had on that, the last Chinese thing we reviewed. All right, cool. So the last version of the Demeter at home. Sharon, have you seen anything?
Yes, I've seen Outrun, the Outrun.
The Outrun. With Saoirse Ronan.
Yeah.
The Outrun, Saoirse Ronan. And...
That had a cinema release, didn't it? Was that the
It
one?
did, but it never came to the island.
Right.
Yeah.
And yet they showed the trailers. I remember seeing the trailers.
Yeah, they showed the trailers practically before every film, but the film actually never appeared, unless it's one of those ones like Last Showgirl, where they do one showing randomly in the middle of the week without any, and that's it. Yes, that's the run.
It was one of those films that was very art housey, and it was very small, and it was very kind of like blink and you miss it. It was a blink and you miss it release for the Outrun, I remember. All right, cool. And I have seen the first season of Resident Alien on Netflix. So let us kick off with let's go Novocaine. Let's go Novocaine, the big dumb action stupid film that's been released this month, this week rather. And so Novocaine, the basic plot of this film. This is a film that is very similar in sort of like not in execution, but in sort of almost concept to something like Crank, where the whole idea is that the poster says, meet Nathan Kane, he feels no pain. And the idea is you meet Jack Quaid, who plays a character called Nathan Kane. He is a bank teller. He's quite mild-mannered. He's reserved, doesn't really have any friends, stays at home playing video games. And he, because he has this condition where he has a congenital inability to feel pain. So because of that, he's worried about things like if he eats solid food, he might bite his tongue and not realize he's bitten his tongue, and therefore he might bleed to death on his own. So he drinks mostly like liquid foods and all that kind of stuff. And he meets a character played by Amber Mid-Thunder in who is called I forgot what her name is, something like Stella or something like that. But anyway, yeah, he meets her and she works in the bank with him. And so there's this whole thing where he's like, oh my God, I might actually have a relationship, I might actually make a human connection, which he's been scared to all these years. They meet, they go off there's a meet cute, there's like a romantic thing, they go out, they end up sleeping together. Then the next day, people raid the next day, people dressed as Santa raid the bank that they work at. They steal a whole bunch of stuff and they take her hostage. And he, because he's like, no, this is the only time I've got any connection in my life. And he runs after them, using his ability to not feel pain to essentially become an action hero for a day and track down these people who have kidnapped who is the love of his life. And that is basically the thing. So you have a guy who can't feel pain, going through a whole bunch of things that you would find in a usual action movie. That's the basic premise. That's all you need to know. And if that's enough for you, I think that hearing that is enough for you to say, I'm watching this, or it's enough for you to say, I'm staying well away. So, Shaun, which one was it for you? Did you hear the premise and go, I'm watching this, or I'm staying away?
Okay, well, when I saw that, I watched the trailer for this, and I sort of was thinking, we've probably seen everything in the trailer, so it's probably not going to be be particularly good. But I did sort of quite look. Well, I was interested in it, so I went to see it, and I would say I was sort of just like not one way or the other until I'd actually seen it. But I was quite surprised by this actually. There was a few extra bits in it. I mean, really like. I mean, again, with me, it should have all the things that I hate. You know what I mean? Stupid car chases. They didn't have the drone shot. So that's
a drone shot of a car chase. I think that this is sort of like quite a mid-budget movie. I mean, they made it for 18 million, which is in film terms is nothing. So I feel like they focused on the things that they knew they could do well, and they didn't focus on any extraneous thing like drone shots.
That's it. But who was the lead? Who was Novocaine? Because he was
Jack Quaid,
boys, wasn't he? Yeah, the guy in the boys, and he just basically played the same.
He's basically playing. He's playing Huey. He's playing Huey from the boys.
He's basically playing Huey. So he's going to end up being typecast, I think. But
he was different in Companion.
Oh right, yeah. Well, for me, I think he went around it a bit of a long way, really. So, but whereas he could have just sort of found out with the because. So anyway, but
because there is a surprising amount of I think quite solid detective work that he does.
There is.
It's not just punch kick. Work. There's actually some sort of detective work of hang on, if I go there and I can find that out, then I can find that out, then I can find that out, and therefore I can get there. I can find out where they. And I think the detective work in the film is actually quite solid.
Yeah, I do think it's quite solid, but I think he could have got to the.
He could have got to the end quicker.
The chap in the bar He probably could have got a little bit easier. But anyway, well, I could be getting confused. But I mean, the blood. There's no way that he would have. I think. I mean, I'm surprised he would have had any. Especially in the house with the traps, and that did make me laugh.
In the middle of this big action movie, there's pretty much a homage to Home Alone, and the film acknowledges that it's homaging Home Alone in the middle of this whole thing. When he goes into a house that's booby trapped, but obviously the problem is that whenever he gets hit by a booby trap, he can't feel it. He doesn't realize that he's been hit. There's a funny scene where he's getting tortured and he has to pretend like he's in massive pain because all these horrific.
That's in the trailer. That one.
Yeah. There's all these horrific things that are being done to him and he can't feel any of it. And so he's like, oh, that is so much pain. Oh,
exactly. Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah, and I think that because the film has a dedication to some almost realism, where it's trying to go like, okay, cool, what would realistically happen and everything like that. And I feel like they go a little bit too far in the dedication to realism, because they try and go into this whole thing about his condition, and they talk about like, for instance, they go to the point of him having an alarm on his watch for every 3 hours, because if he doesn't have the alarm every 3 hours, he might end up like wetting himself. Because and I'm like, okay, so are you saying he can't feel pain? Or are you saying he can't feel anything?
Anything, yeah.
And that is something that is not that well. It's not that well defined in the film.
Defined, yeah.
Because there's things I'm like, but hang on. In the case, if you actually can't feel anything, then how do you walk? How do you pick something up? How do you know that? And it's so. And I think because in the film, like they try and have the kick and easy. So sometimes it's like he can't feel pain, but sometimes it's like, oh, he can't feel anything. And I'm like, nah, that kind of took me out of it a bit, because there were bits where I'm like, okay, now you're saying he can't feel pain. Okay, I can understand that as a stupid concept and everything like that. Let's go for the film. Let's do a Hollywood version of that condition. And then if you say he can't feel anything, because it took me out of it sometimes, because I thought that they were not being that clear with it, and it was making the film less good, because they were not being clear about that.
I didn't really clear that up, but it was. I mean, it was daft, really, because there's no way any of them, like him or even some of the should we say the action sequences where their heads were getting bashed and all sorts of things going on, and you're like, what? From that, and broken limbs and stuff. But it was pretty bloody, wasn't it? Really,
it was pretty bloody, and they do have a way around it. But they because I mean, because they point out the fact that he can't feel pain. That doesn't mean he can't die. Because he can die, he just can't feel pain. He can die from blood loss. And they have this regular thing, which is where it becomes very, very crank, where he knows that he's about to pass out, and so he gives himself a shot of epinephrine, because it's essentially, and it's very much like crank, where he has to have the adrenaline.
Would it do that, Toes? Would adrenaline do that? I don't know if it. I mean, I could understand it doing a bit, but I don't know it would give you like a super boost, unless it was. I mean, because I've had a EpiPen before, and it does give you a shot, but I don't know if it'd be like, ooh.
I don't know. I've never had a shot of adrenaline. I've never had a shot of epinephrine, so I really do not know what would go with that. I'm stuck in the dubious thing of having to trust filmmakers to tell me how something works. But the thing is, I was happy to let that go, because in the realms of like a stupid action film, I was happy to let that go. The bit that I couldn't let go was where they weren't being clear about whether he doesn't feel pain or whether he doesn't feel anything.
Because he wouldn't be able to walk, would he? He wouldn't be able to walk or anything.
You better pick anything up.
No, that's the bit that I'm like, it would be very difficult. I mean, there might be people who have this condition, and it will be very difficult, and that just made me go, hang on a second, no, make it clear, make it clear,
make it clear. Because if you can't
involved in this woman, then how would that work? Then if you can't feel anything,
they have a scene. There's a scene about that, and they're very unclear about it.
They are, and it's the scene that's in the trailer where he goes, "I'm definitely feeling something."
I know, but it's like and it's like a joke. It's like done as a throwaway joke, but I'm like, it needs to be clearer. It needs to be clear for this to be the absolute fun that I hoped this film would be. Yeah. So for me, I would give it a 3 out of 5.
Yeah, I would totally agree with you. As I say, it was. I mean, because of the type of film it was, I wasn't like critical. It reminded me a bit like The Bad Boys. You know what I mean? It's not. It doesn't take itself too serious. When films take themselves seriously, that I get a bit cheesy. So it's a 3 for me as well.
Yeah. All right, cool. So that's 3 stars for Novocaine. And now we go over to Prime Video, and this is The Last Voyage of the Demeter, which all of a sudden just showed up. It showed up out of nowhere, like big, massive thumbnail. Good. And I was like, oh, finally, it's over here. So, Shaun, tell us about the last... Okay, I'll tell you what I know about The Last Voyage of Demeter. Yeah. I know that it is based on one chapter of Bram Stoker's Dracula, the novel, which is where Dracula is on a ship, and the ship goes from wherever it originally stands from. I'm guessing it would have been Transylvania, to England, and that's where it lands in Whitby. And it's about what happens during this voyage, because in the book, by the time the ship gets to Whitby, there's nobody on it. So it's a ghost ship. So the Demeter is this ship, and is it the last voyage or the voyage?
The last voyage. The last
voyage of the Demeter. Yeah. And it's and that's what this is about. So Shaun, tell us about the last voyage of the Demeter.
Okay, so this sort of this is these gypsies arrive with all these big wooden crates to board the Demeter, which they're going to ship to England. They want to ship them to England. Now, they've got these crates, and the gypsies pay a lot of money. The gypsies pay a lot of money for the Demeter to take all these rather nasty wooden crates. There's a like a doctor who wants to be part of the crew because they need to crew the Demeter, and he basically gets poo-pooed. But what happens is on these crates there's a symbol, and one of the chaps in the crew goes, "Let's go with it," and he goes, "I'm not, that's a bad sign. I'm not taking that."
Or he sees the symbol and he decides.
Yeah, he sees the symbol on these things. He's like, "I'm that's it. I'm gone." And the doctor chap, he manages to save the boy as the thing's falling, so he gets a job and he appears on the crew. And then as they're sailing away, so they sail away, and one of the crates breaks, and there's this woman in it, and because he's a doctor, he does some blood transfusions. I mean, I don't know how he knew they were the same blood group, whatever, but anyway, he does a blood transfusion on this girl because she's lacking her blood. So I can't really. I suppose that would be a plot anyway. And so gradually, the next night, all the animals on the place are all butchered and killed, and they wonder what's going on. And then slowly, basically, you can imagine different things are happening to the crew as it goes along, and of course you get a couple of superstitious ones that are like, it's a woman on board, all gone. You know what I mean?
It's bad luck to have a woman.
That's mad, and then they finally sort of come out to this confrontation thing, and so that's basically it. So it's basically all the the voyage of them going to London and then deciding to try. They tried to. Yeah, go on.
I was going to say that this just strikes me as it would be Alien, the film Alien, only on a ship in, like, I don't know.
Do you know that
Victorian era?
That's a good call. That's a good call, actually. That is a really, really good call. Yeah, it's probably, you could say it is Alien, but they they know what's going on. I'll tell you who's in this. Is it what's his name? Is it David Duchovny or the guy?
David Duchovny, the guy who played Mulder.
Yeah. He was brilliant. He's brilliant. I really rate him. He was like the bosun. He really think he's and the character, but he just plays it so well. I think he's very, very versatile.
When you made this film, is it a recent film? I haven't heard of it.
Oh, this film was made probably about 5 years ago. I think it's one of the films that got hit by COVID. It got hit by COVID in that they'd made the film, they were ready to release it in 2020, and then COVID happened, and so all of a sudden it was like, when's it going to be released? What's going to happen? I'm pretty sure that was the case. That was part of the whole thing about why it got released in the States, and then, at that time when everybody was just freaking out about, we can't make money in the cinema, quick, pull it, and then it got caught up in riots before you could see it anywhere around the world and all that nonsense. So
so on the whole, so it's basically that's what it is. But the doctor does he sort of manages to get away to. So I think, I don't know if they were looking for making a sequel for like a Hunter or something like that, but I won't. You'd have to watch it to see that.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm just gonna ask one question, which should be, for some people, will be a spoiler, and for some people they won't have a clue. So it's how faithful is this to the novel?
I've not actually read the novel, so I couldn't comment on that. But I don't know.
How faithful is it to the whole idea of this ship arriving in Whitby as a ghost ship?
Because it's actually wrecked. It's actually wrecked. That's how it starts off. The film is wrecked. So the ship is wrecked, and there's no one on the ship, and they found, and so they sort of turn up, and so obviously Dracula's managed to get off the ship somehow, and he's gonna. I guess that's where it is. Whereas where the hunted at the end comes in, he's sort of like a gentleman. You sort of see towards the end. So
just one thing, Shaun. I think you're talking about David Dalmatian.
David Dalmatian, yeah.
Oh no, not Duchovny. David Dalmatian.
Yeah, the one who was in Late
Yeah.
Night with the Devil.
Late Night with the Devil. Yeah. David Dalmatian.
Him was class. Really, really. He is so versatile.
That's why I asked the question of how old it was, thinking David Duchovny.
Yeah. So yeah, Deschanel, that's the dude. That's the dude. Yeah, he was absolutely brilliant as a bosun. He looked totally. He can look different in so many different things. You know, he was really, really good. But on the whole, I mean, I quite like all the stuff to do with Dracula and vampires and things. I found this a little bit slow. It was a little bit. It took a while to get going. Nothing really amazing, and like you named, like basically Alien on board a 18th century ship or whatever, or 19th century ship, and so for me, this is only going to be a 3-star. I think I might have been expecting a little bit more. I think I might have been expecting a little bit more, perhaps. But
I think before, be a bit of a correction. We apologize because we made a mistake earlier. It was not supposed to be released in 2020. It was they actually started filming this in 2021.
Oh, right. Okay.
Started filming in 2021.
So
But it was still in that sort of COVID funk thing, but it wasn't supposed to be released in 2020, and I think COVID did affect it. Its original run in cinemas.
So yeah, just a basic 3-star, really watchable, very watchable, but not sort of amazing,
not pulling up trees,
earth shattering. Yeah, just a regular standard thing. But David Deschanel is his name?
Dalmatian.
Yeah, class. Yeah. So I mean,
cool. Or is it Dasmalchian?
I don't know. I didn't know how to place it. That's what I was hoping you would.
It's that. I think it's Dasmalchian. But anyway, I will go and practice that. In the meantime, let us go back to cinema and let us talk Death of a Unicorn. The new This has been described as A24 does Jurassic Park in some areas. But Sharon, please take it away. Tell us about Death of a Unicorn. Tell us about the basic premise.
Yeah, this starts off with a father and his daughter, played by Paul Rudd, and her name escapes me now. Wednesday Adams.
Jenna Ortega.
That's it, Jenna Ortega. They're very good. They are heading up to this sort of mountain retreat of an eccentric billionaire, probably, where he lived. He's played by Richard E. Grant, and his wife is played by Tia Leone. So it's some good names in here.
Yeah, good to see her for a while. I haven't seen anything for a while.
No, not for a while. So Richard E. Grant is this eccentric billionaire who lives in this mountain retreat that is, it's like a wild preserve I'm assuming it's in Canada. Because I think it's Canada. So they've got this vast estate of untouched wilderness, basically, and this father and his daughter are going up there because he has a prospect of sort of doing well in his career. He wants to sort of make a deal where he becomes like a partner or something. But anyway, reasons he goes up there because Richard is terminally ill, and on the way up there, during a bit of a spat with his daughter, and he has a bit of hay fever, they have an accident on the road and they hit an animal.
Yep.
Big surprise, it's a baby unicorn. And and so it looks obviously terminally wounded, it's bleeding, it's distressed. So Dad decides that he's going to just put it out of his misery, so he sort of tries to bludgeon it to death. And in the process, both of them get covered in this unicorn blood. And by the time they get to this mansion and they he tries to sort of do the big spiel, they begin to notice that her acne has cleared up. She goes covered with some of the blood, and his allergies have cleared up. And it turns out that the unicorn, or various parts of the unicorn, could actually turn out to be a wonder drug. And so instead of seeing this as like a wonder of nature and something to be treasured, they see it as something, maybe a resource to be exploited. And then they find out that this baby unicorn is the progeny of bigger unicorns. And those bigger unicorns aren't very happy. And the rest of the film is basically those unhappy unicorns trying to get their baby back.
Yeah.
And they don't care who gets in the way.
No, I can imagine. I can imagine. I mean, the trailers the trailers have made that very clear that these are not your unicorns who fought rainbows and sparkle in the sunlight or anything like that.
They're not
So
My Little Pony with a horn. No.
no. The trailers make it very clear that is not this film. It's so. Sean, what did you think of Death of a Unicorn?
Okay, Death of a Unicorn. I think I made this comment to Sharon. I got really annoyed with Jenny Ortega's dad, didn't I? I was getting really frustrated because
Paul Rudd, yeah.
Yeah, Paul Rudd. Because I mean, I like Paul Rudd, but he was such a wimp, and I would have said, you would stand. You know what I mean? Because the family wants to. You can understand his motives, I guess, because he's going to get a good deal from this family that are really, really rich, but they're really horrible to him and to his daughter, really. And I basically would have, and I think you would have, well, wouldn't you, Sharon, have said, look, sorry, I'm out of here. I'm not taking this. And I think for me as well, the Jenny Ortega character was, I don't know, she 1 minute she was one thing, and then the next she wasn't. She wasn't sort of explaining herself properly, and so you probably
they're trying to draw on the legends of the unicorn and the maiden,
yeah.
so that they like a pure-hearted maiden will win the heart of the unicorn.
Yeah.
And then they can do all these things. And so sometimes she's a stroppy teen, and other times she's sort of this sort of pure in heart. So she does veer between stroppy teen, fighting with her dad, and communing with nature.
I suppose we can put that up to hormones, because being a teenage girl, maybe. But yeah, I mean, because sometimes she didn't really stand up for herself, did she? Either she was not.
No.
Maybe that's the traits of her dad. So I mean, I'm pretty sure, she'd have been a much more forceful type of character.
All right, okay. And Sharon, what did you think about it?
Yeah, I must admit, I had high expectations, which is always a little bit. You're almost setting yourself up to be slightly disappointed, aren't you, when you go in with really expectations? Yeah. I really I was looking forward to seeing this. I thought it's going to be a lot of fun. It was fun in places, but I found some of the acting a bit broad, because obviously when the actors know that this is a ridiculous premise, it does sort of influence their performances. So I found some of the acting not terribly believable. Some of the some of the supporting actors, I was just like, you're having a good time with this, but it doesn't always translate to convincing storytelling. And I think we went with Happy John as well. And one of the things he said, and afterwards I thought, yeah, that is true. It was quite long, and I think it would have been improved by a bit tighter editing.
Yeah.
A lot of the angry unicorn scenes, I think some of them it's just like, okay, running in through the woods in pursuit of an angry unicorn in pursuit. Okay, running around the house, angry unicorn in pursuit. Okay, running around the garden, angry unicorn in pursuit. So you had a lot of bits thinking you could tighten this up a little bit. I think it showed a little bit of self-indulgence in the way they did let some of these scenes go on. I think a bit too long. Yeah. Could have been tighter. Could have been a bit more compact. That I think would have made it a bit more effective. And then they obviously signposted. We know that there's going to be some gory deaths. They're all signposted early on. You saw exactly how they're all going to die, because you see it in one of they show you some tapestries. It's like you're signposting a lot of the events that are going on later. Yeah. Again, I thought if they're going to do that, you're going to signpost them, and you've got to get on with it, because these aren't going to become as a surprise. You just got to make them interesting.
I think a bit flabby, could be tighter. It was going to be a theme this week.
Yeah.
Yeah. So much. Yeah. Okay. So Sharon, just finish off your thought, and then Sean is itching to say something. So Sharon, finish up what you're saying.
No, I was just saying, for me, yeah. So for me, it was, I liked it, but I didn't love it, and I wanted it to be better than it was.
All right. Sean.
I just want to say, I agree everything with Sharon. I would say it was a 3. I think it could have been better. It had moments, but what really as well, and I don't know why things get on my nerves. Perhaps I'm just an old contrast thing. They did do the obligatory drone shot at the beginning of the film with a car driving up to and it's just like, not again. You know what I mean? With the big wide out. Do you know what I mean? The shot I mean, right? And they need to put that in now all the time. It's like those silly. I don't know. Well, I don't know. It just really.
It's like a car advert, isn't it? It's a car advert.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, the car advert. That's what it is. Get this car.
Sure, but Sean, if you have a drone, you're gonna use the drone. You need to use the thing.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. But it's just funny. It's funny how I pick up on things like I don't know what it is up there that I pick up on.
But it is funny. But
if it was used to show their sense of isolation, it'd be one thing. But it doesn't. It's just like windy road, wooded hillside. It doesn't give you a sense of place because all those things are set up by other landscape shots. You don't need that.
Well, I'll tell you one thing that happens, right? Well, there do seem to be these things that all of a sudden Hollywood just everybody starts doing them at the same time.
Yeah.
For instance, this film it has this whole thing of rich people are bad. Rich capitalist people are bad, and that is a thing that keeps showing up in films now, where you have these characters who you can see are obviously supposed to be a Mark Zuckerberg or an Elon Musk or somebody like that, and it's just this thing that it goes rich, successful company must be bad, and it's something that just keeps popping up and up again. And I guess it might be that with the drone shots. But how many stars would you give this?
3 stars.
3 for me too.
Okay, 3 stars for Death of a Unicorn. So, and one other thing I wanted to say about the drone shots. Sean, you mentioned about there being lack of drone shots in Novocaine. There are actually some drone shots where they show the city, but they're quite brief.
But it's not a car. It's not a car driving through a tree landscape.
No, it isn't. And I think that there is a very good reason why they don't do that because Novocaine is set in San Diego. It's set in San Diego.
Yeah.
It was filmed in Cape Town in South Africa.
Really?
It was. I know.
Yeah, I mean, I looked at it and I did think that because I've been to San Diego. I love San Diego. San Diego is a great place, but I did think that. But they did mention the sports teams, didn't they, with the Chargers and the
They mentioned the sports teams, and I thought it was quite well done because there've been some things before that are filmed in other countries and they're trying to make them look like America and do not work. Like there was a Netflix series called Pieces of Her that is supposed to be set in San Francisco, and as I was watching it, I was like, this is obviously Australia.
Yeah.
Before I even looked it up, I was like, this looks like Australia. It's Australia. Looked it up, filmed in Australia. This one, it was only after I looked it up, I was like, oh, filmed in Cape Town. That is pretty impressive because I did not, watching the film, I wouldn't know. All right, switching over to Netflix now, and we are going to talk Resident Alien. Resident Alien, this is it was a sci-fi original, weirdly enough. And this is sci-fi originals, sometimes they're kind of like, and they have a bad reputation. They tend to be low rent. They tend to not have very good effects or anything like that. But this is one that actually is quite well because it's a sort of comedy. And it stars Alan Tudyk, who is always good value. I love Alan Tudyk, and I'll probably watch anything he does. And it is, the whole idea behind it is it starts off and you see this drone shot of a cabin by a lake just somewhere in Colorado. And the sheriff and his deputy pull up to the place, and they say, "Oh, is this the doctor that you're talking about?" And say, "Yeah, there's this doctor who comes here. He usually keeps himself to himself. He's there for a couple of months of the year, but this time he showed up late last year and he hasn't left. He hasn't left since then." And then the doctor's out on the lake, and when the doctor turns around, the doctor has the classic alien face. So the big eyes, everything like that. It's sort of like he's in gray. He's kind of like sort of like shimmery blue, purpley, and everything like that. And that's Alan Tudyk. Then you find out that when it comes to the shore, they see Alan Tudyk. They explain to him that, look, the local doctor in the town has died. We need a doctor to come in and have a look at him and tell us what happened. And if we think it might be a murder or we think it might be a suicide. And so he comes in and he does that. And it turns out that he is actually an alien who has like this molecular reconstruction thing so he can appear human. He crash landed on Earth once. With a mission which is not revealed at the beginning what his mission is. But he crash lands on Earth. He can't go anywhere, so he finds this person in the cabin, kills him, and assumes his form, and so walks around and he goes, well, because I'm really clever and humans are stupid, I can learn everything about being a doctor from the internet. And then he goes around trying to convince everybody that he's this character. And it's quite funny because you have this fish out of water thing, which I think Alan Tudyk can do really, really well. There's the comedic stylings of somebody who can't speak English properly, but is trying to convince everybody that he's a person. There's the fact that he doesn't understand social mores or anything like that, and people just kind of like write it off. And there is a really, I think it's quite well done. It's quite well done thing where He says that one in every 10,000 humans can see through the molecular reconstruction. They have a genetic trait that means they can see through the molecular reconstruction. And in this town, the only person who can see through this is a small boy. And every time the small boy sees him in the street, he's like, ah! And runs off. And because he takes over as the local doctor, he sometimes goes in and goes, right, yeah, this kid has needs his allergy shots. And then he opens up and it's the kid, and the kid is like, ah! And so there's this running gag about this kid being the only one who knows he's an alien, and the kid trying to get, and it's telling you the kind of flavor of the show, because it's one of these shows that has him walking around, but then has an inner monologue where he actually thinks. He sees this kid, and the kid is like, the kid is like, oh my God, he's an alien. He's like, oh, the kid knows I'm an alien. I must kill him. And so there is a whole sequence of him trying to kill this kid, like straight up, seriously trying to murder this kid. And it's about how the kid keeps outsmarting him and everything like that. It's funny. It's funny, but as I said, I expect that from anything that stars Alan Tudyk. I expect it to have its comedic moments. It's quite good, and I think that they have like a mystery element that goes on and builds up through its 10 episodes of the first season. And I think that they do that quite well. I think there's a thing that I personally think that if you're going to have a season of a show, you should have. I know you want this thing to carry on as long as possible because you want to make money and you want this thing to go on for multiple seasons. But I feel like if you're going to have a central thing for a season, finish that bit off, but leave some bits that you can come back to find out more about in the next season. And I think this does this very, very well. There's some shows that that do it in a way that annoys me. Like there's a show that everybody's talking about at the moment, Severance, on Apple TV Plus. And I remember the first season of Severance. I remember how the final episode ends. And some people are like, oh my God, that's one of the best cliffhanger endings. It annoyed the life out of me because it told me that this is a show that is not going to give you answers and it's just going to keep going. It's going to string you for 10 episodes and then go, I guess you have to come back next season to find out the answers. I'm like, no, we're not. And that's why I haven't watched season 2, because I heard season 2 ends on a cliffhanger where they go, more will be revealed in season 3. And I'm like, get lost. Just get lost. Because
I'm not playing your games.
Exactly. I'm like, I refuse to play your game. You don't want to give me any answers. You just want to string me along. And I do not like that. And I prefer the way the writing is done in this, where they give you some answers, but they give you some stuff to come back for next season that hasn't been resolved. So all in all, I would give Resident Alien a 4 out of 5, season 1. I think it's good. I think it's funny. I think and I think it plays with the sort of like alien lore and what people know. There's a bit where they go to a Comic-Con to go find out, the kind of people who sort of have panels where they talk about how they've been abducted, and they have all these people coming up, and he's just sort of standing in the audience going, fake. No, we don't do that. Oh no, that's not us. That's the Greys. It's quite funny. I'll give it a 4 out of 5. I think you guys would like it, and that is on Netflix. It's also on Sky, but I think the first 2 seasons are on Netflix. The first 3 seasons are on Sky. Wow. Right. Oh God, it's me again. And now we're going to talk about The Woman in the Yard. The Woman in the Yard, the film that I think you guys haven't really seen about. You haven't heard that much about. I mean, I saw a trailer for this one. I thought, oh, that's coming up. And then the next week I was like, oh, it's in the cinema. Well, I guess I'll go watch that. And full disclosure, the main reason I went to go watch that is because pretty much everybody in this film is black. And I was like, yay, cool. We have like one of these horror movies and everything like that, but it's based on black people. And obviously, if everybody in the film is black, they can all die first, can they? So, that's why I went to watch this film. I also thought that there were some bits of this trailer that looked a bit atmospheric and everything. But as you were saying with Death of a Unicorn, where it's a bit flabby, or we're saying with Novocaine, where they don't really make it clear what the definition of is it pain or is it pain or is it feeling that he can't feel. There is a bit of that with this film. So the whole idea with this film is you meet a woman played by Danielle Deadwyler, and she has 2 children. They live in this remote farmhouse. And when the film starts, it becomes clear quickly that she's recently lost her husband. And she's really lost her husband. As you go along, you find out it was in a car accident, and she got injured, but she survived, but her husband didn't. And when you first meet her, she's lying in bed. Her kid is trying to get her attention. She doesn't seem to have like any compunction to get out of bed or anything like that. Doesn't really look like she's looking after her kids. Her kid's telling her, look, the electricity has gone out. We don't have any electricity. the dog food has run out. We're like, essentially, there's nothing in this house. We need to do something. And she won't let her kids do it. She says that I will do it, but then she refuses to do it. And at the beginning of the film, because the electricity has run out, her phone has no battery charge. Her son's phone is broken. They can't really contact anybody. And he's like, come on, we need to sort something out about this. Then all of a sudden, this woman, Shaun has the poster in the background, but this woman dressed entirely in black with a veil on, just shows up sitting in a chair in the front yard. And it's like, there's a woman in the yard. She goes out, has a chat with this woman, and this woman is like, well, this woman seems to know things about her, knows about the fact that that she's like, well, my husband's indoors. She's like, well, your husband isn't indoors. Like you're on crutches. There's a busted car in your front thing. Your husband isn't indoors. And it's like, you've called me here. You've called me here. I'm here. Today is the day. And she just says the thing to her, today is the day. And so it carries on to be the kind of horror movie. And I think it's caught in between. It's not sure whether it wants to be like, the sort of almost sort of slasher being chased around a haunted house horror movie, or whether it wants to be that kind of, the elliptical, hang on, what the hell is going on?
This, like the folk horror.
Yeah, almost like a folk horror, almost like, the kind of horrors that feel a little bit like a horrible dream, almost like a David Lynchian thing, where you're like, hang on, what goes on there? If I go in there, oh, there's a mirror. Oh my God, I can go through the mirror. Now I'm on the other side of the mirror. Okay, which one is me? Which one isn't? That, and it's caught in between, where it isn't being either one of these things, and it's not. And I mean, when I finished watching the film, I made a note on my phone, and the note was clumsy and not clear. And those are two separate things. Like, what it does in the film, it does some of it quite clumsily, and it isn't clear what's going on. It isn't clear. Well, and there's a bit where they do some kind of like elliptical kind of like, oh, this happens, and and this person's here now, and we're gonna. And there's a scene that happens right at the beginning of the film that gets played again a couple of times throughout the film. And once they started that, and it's one of these films where the first line of the film kind of tells you a lot about what the film's going to go through. And I feel like it was kind of when someone rewrites it, I think they think, oh, this is really clever. But I'm not sure whether it's just the fact, and we find this often when we're doing this podcast because we watch many, many things, whether it's just because we've watched so many things that the second I heard that line, I was like, okay, cool, I know what film we're in for. I know what's going to happen now. And then, so this scene keeps coming back, and it keeps coming back, and it's supposed to be clever, but I just think it's clumsy, and I don't think it nails what it's supposed to be going for. So there are some effects, like the woman in the yard, she has this whole thing where if her shadow falls across something, her shadow is what can actually, affect things. Like there's bits there's bits in the trailer, for instance, where they have this wind chimes hanging outside the house, and then her shadow.
Fair.
Yeah, and then her shadow falls across the wind chimes, but her shadow falls across the shadow of the wind chimes. She hits the shadow of the wind chimes, and then the wind chimes tinkle. And so they do that trick, but it feels a little bit like, Shaun, you're complaining about drone shots. It feels a little bit like they figured out how to do that one trick, and so they were like, let's use this trick again, and they just keep using the trick over and over again. There's a clever bit where they're trying to do something about shutting all the windows so that they don't get a shadow and all that, but it doesn't really hold together. And it is quite... I was a bit bored by the end of it. I was looking at the time, and when the film ends, the film does a thing where, at the end, where I'm kind of like, I just went with it. Yeah, of course. That was my that was kind of right, like okay. That was kind of like my overwhelming thing. Yeah, of course. I just kind of thought, this film is at most a low 3. It is at most a low 3, possibly a high 2. I just there are bits where they try and do something in there, because even from the way the film starts, there's a lot of things that, so, okay, we're going to be talking about mental health here, and they're trying to do about mental. There's even a sign at the end of the film that says, if you're affected by any of these issues. And there's a bit to do with the end where you feel like, I just kind of knew what they were doing the whole way through. Or rather, I knew what they were trying to do, and I don't think that they always nailed it. So I would give this
a low 3.
It's a low 3. It's a low 3. It's a low 3. It's a low 3. I think... In my heart, I think it's a 2, but I think a straight down the middle 2 is too harsh.
You're right.
And I wouldn't watch this film again. But yeah. Well, anyway, let's go away from that and let's go back to Netflix and Friends. And this is actual Netflix, and we're going to talk about the Outrun with Saoirse, Ronan, and Papa Asiedu. So, Sharon, tell us about the Outrun.
Yeah, this is based on a memoir of a young woman called Ronan. and that's not the name of the writer of the book, but in the film she's called Ronan, and she's a young woman who grew up in the Orkney Islands, so in the far north, where the wind and the sky aren't ever present. And as soon as she was old enough, she did what a lot of islanders do. She left, and she went down to London. We say up to London. She went down to London, and
it is pretty much the opposite end of the country from where you are.
Yeah. We're an island down the bottom. She did an island at the top. So yes, she goes to London, and what starts off as just like a bit of social drinking, and having fun with her mates and her boyfriend, turns into be the fact that she doesn't control it the way all her other friends do. But then, when it's time to go to work, they stop drinking, they pull themselves together, they sober up, and they go to work, and they hold down their jobs, and they have their relationships, and they have their friendships, and they have things that they value. But for her, drink takes over, and it becomes pretty clear that she becomes an alcoholic. And when she drinks, she is reckless, she's aggressive, she's emotional, she's either bursting into tears or raging, and she by one she basically drives everyone away. The love of her life, her boyfriend, who she's been with, he basically can't bear it any longer, and as much as he tries to support her, he can't. And it all comes to a head when she basically is attacked, and she takes herself into rehab, and she then decides that I can't carry on the way I'm going, so she goes into rehab to get sober, and she decides she's going to go home to the Orkneys to see if she can get herself back together. And it's called the Outrun because on the farm you have basically like the fields close to the farm, and then you have like the hills in the background, called the Outrun, where sort of the sheep are sent to sort of graze. It's like a safe place for them. It's somewhere they can go, but it's far away from the farmhouse. It's where animals sort of go. They're sort of semi-wild, but it's sort of like a safe place. So she goes to the Outrun of her life, which is up into the Hebrides and the Orkneys, and she stays home for a little while, but she finds that it isn't helping her either, just being with her family. Her dad's bipolar. Her mum is a sort of, she describes her being very religious, but I would describe it she's just a Christian. But so like she prays for her daughter, and she has her church friends round, and they say, "Oh, I'm going to pray for you," and she finds that repulsive, and so she retreats even further. So she goes, even though she's in the Orkney Islands, she then retreats to a much smaller Orkney Island, to sort of find herself and to sort of go into that struggle with being sober. And I say it's basically a journey of the ups and downs, the failures, the triumphs, the highs, the lows of being an alcoholic and trying to be a functioning alcoholic, someone who is an alcoholic but who doesn't drink. And how you can live with that.
This is one of those films that got described as meditative or meditative peace, where there's like a peace, where there's a lot of shots of like, the lambing and the animals and the nature and all that. But was it effective? What did you think?
I did in some ways. Yes, in some ways I did, because though I thought in some ways the use of the music, for me, I found it intrusive, because I think she was retreating to the Highlands, and I think it's a state of her mind, because she was playing like this sort of, I don't know how to describe it, but for me it was just like a lot of repetitive sounds. So I don't want to call it like drum and bass, because I don't really know what that sounds like, because it's not something I listen to. So I can't say, she was listening to this, but to me she was listening to a lot of these sort of techno, loud, repetitive sounds. So I don't even know how to describe that. And anaesthetizing herself away from the world. And I think as the story progresses, like they use sound in different ways to chart her journey. And because there's a lot of this intrusive music, to me, I was thinking, well, you're still separating yourself from the world. If you want to be almost like healed by the landscape, then using this music is creating a barrier between you and the landscape. Because
I think you described that very well, that music, Sharon. I think you described that really eloquently. That was perfect.
But it's not something I've listened to, so I couldn't really describe it in terms of how, because I'm sure there's a proper genre for it. But anyway, so I found that a little bit intrusive. But it's only really at the end of the film when she begins to sort of be able to listen to the wind and listen to nature and embrace sort of more things that she begins to find herself. So it's a journey. It is meditative and it is contemplative. Sorry, that wasn't said very well, but
yes,
it's one of those quieter films.
Yeah, I always find films that I really, I wish I'd have seen this. I wouldn't mind watching this because I find, not that, I just find alcoholism, because during my life I've met quite a few, and I think there are some people that can play it really well and other ones that can't. And some of the films I've seen, if someone can play an alcoholic really well, because it is a change of personality and it's like a different person. So I know we should be talking other issues, but for me, films where someone can portray, I'm trying to think what that film was. It might have been, but anyway, doesn't matter. Sorry. Does she portray
those highs and lows of how she seems like she's having a good time, and then she's crying, or she suddenly loses her rag, or
loses the rag? That's
it. Those sort of things, or where she's
interesting that you said driving people away.
Sorry, Shawnee.
Interesting that you said driving people away, because that is a sure sign of an alcoholic. Even people who really try to support and help.
And then she knows her behaviour is driving people away, and she's like begging them like her boyfriend, to say, I'll change, I'll do anything, I'll stop drinking, and then on the next breath she's going to find her stash behind the toilet or in the bathroom or wherever, and then just chugging down, not even enjoying it, but literally just chugging down like a pint of vodka. Because it's this prime need that is not logical and it's not emotional, but it's something that some people have just a
compulsion.
I always thought I'd like to write a play about it. I could do it in three acts.
Oh, cool.
So I find it quite sad.
Not that I'm not really a drinker at all, not me, but just other people that I've known through my life who.
I think we've all met drinkers.
Sorry, philosophical. It
could be the first Netflix
we know
cinema
we've all
stage
known.
production.
Yeah. But I know some of us, we've all known, and we've lost friends who are drinkers who can't sort of fight those demons, and others who you think, good for you, you are. So those paths of how to get out of, that one day at a time, or whether they complete abstinence, whatever. But yes, it's interesting. I thought it was interesting. It's quite sad in some ways, because you're thinking that this sort of destructive behaviour, but against her will in some ways.
So how many stars?
So I would probably give that. I'm torn between a 3 and a 4. I find it's not a film you can say you enjoyed, because you feel like it's such a hard story for someone to have to go through, and you really want to be able to take that burden from them. So in terms of that and the emotional connection, then I'd probably say it was a 4, because it did make me feel for like. It's not a situation that I've ever been in, but I really feel for her, even though she wasn't very likable.
Yeah.
And we couldn't say, she's a lovely young lady. I thought she was awful most of the time, but you really felt for her. You felt compassion for her in that situation.
She's an absolute tearaway.
Yeah, and you probably think, if I probably wouldn't know someone like that, because I would have been driven away, probably at school. I would have been like, your path is going that way and mine just isn't. So our paths would have parted then. So I probably wouldn't have been around when she was 30 and, climbing the walls, bless her. So, so a 4.
Right. So a 4. All right, cool. So all that's left to ask is, I'm sure we will do a working man next week.
Yeah, that's okay. I mean, it's pretty much, if you know Jason Statham films like Beekeeper and all them.
That's why I moved it to next week. I'm like, it's a Jason Statham movie.
And that was when I got, when I said about going around the long way when we were talking about Novocaine. I was confused with the film because they was, they're in different ways, if you know what I mean. So
Yeah, because I look at Working Man and I'm like, you know what? I really don't think the rating of this film is going to change from the second you see the poster. Once you see the poster, the rating you're going to give it from the poster is the rating.
I went to see that with Happy John, actually. That was before we went to see, we did a double bill. That was before we saw
Right, but okay, so the question is, who do you think has won this week? Netflix or cinema?
Well, on that last
Dreaming.
I reckon it's a draw.
Okay,
I think Dreaming just pipped it.
Streaming just
Streaming pipped it, I think.
For a second I thought you said Dreaming, and I was like, we reviewed a film called Dreaming.
We were dreaming this whole time.
It's And it is, yes, you are right. Streaming did win. It was not really a pip-tit because we had a 3 all across the board. In some cases, just about scraping a 3 on the film side of things. And
of course, that was streaming. I was thinking that was cinema, that Outrun. I don't know why I had it in my head. That's why I thought a draw. But yeah, no, it's so streaming won.
Yeah, streaming won with a 3, a 4, and a 4. So so streaming was good. So all right, that's cool. That's us done. I mean, if you like what you hear, please do let us know. Get in touch with us on YouTube. Tell us what you think about all of our views, and especially tell us whether you think we are totally wrong about what happens in China. I really want to know what happens in China nowadays, to be honest with you. And just find us on Netflix via Cinema. And until next week, it's a goodbye from me.
It's a goodbye from me.
And it's a goodbye from me.
Thank you ever so much for joining us.